Now it's on a global scale. It's not just Africa anymore. It's not just India. It's the whole globe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what these injections are all about.
Yeah.
They're poisons, and
Yeah.
they are intended to wipe out hundreds of millions of people, at least hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah.
It's intentional. I
Yeah.
have no doubt about that.
The entire contents of this podcast and website are based upon the opinions of Tammy Garcia and her guests, unless otherwise noted. The information on this podcast is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional and is not intended as medical advice. It is intended as a sharing of knowledge and information from the research and experience of Tammy Garcia and her guests. This is the Naturally Inspired Podcast, coming to you from our 1890 homestead in Johnstown, Colorado. I'm Tammy, and I want to thank you for joining us. Let's get started and help people feel good so they can do what they love for longer. Today on the Naturally Inspired Podcast, we have David Rasnick, PhD, joining us. David has a long history working in pharmaceutical industry, and he has over 40 years experience as a scientist. His areas of expertise include AIDS, arthritis, cancer, drug design, and clinical diagnostics. He was a participant in the Presidential AIDS Advisory Panel of South Africa. David is the author of Germ of Lies, Virus Mania, and the article Tyranny of Dogma, which is a must read if you want to understand just how and when science died in our country. This interview is so important, and it ends quite emotionally, demonstrating just how much trouble we are in with millions of lives at stake. My hope is we will reach you with David's message and that you will begin to stand up and take back your liberty. Let this podcast serve as a call to action. I hope you hear it loud and clear from David Rasnick on this episode of the Naturally Inspired Podcast. I just want to start by thanking you so much for being on the Naturally Inspired Podcast.
I have to thank you too. You're doing your part. So I really appreciate you and thank you as well.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to do my best to hang with you. I feel like a bit of a mental midget talking to you because I've read your work and I've listened to you speak, and your resume is outstanding. I can't say enough about what you've done with your life.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I've had a good life.
It appears so. It sure appears so. Let's start with your background. Okay. I want to paint a picture here, so people can connect to who you are. And so I want to really, dig into the experiences you've had throughout your career. So give us a little bit of your background, how you got involved in science, why, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to go through the whole story. It's a long way. I came through the back door, so to speak. I wanted to be an astronaut until my eyesight went bad. And then I was drafted. I went to Vietnam. I was going to be an aerospace engineer at Georgia Tech. I went to Vietnam in 69, 70, came back. Went back to Georgia Tech. I didn't want to be an aerospace engineer anymore. What am I going to do? And actually, I've written a book, unpublished right now. I've written a published book on cancer for cancer researchers, the chromosomal imbalance theory of cancer. And I've written and have written, it's finished, it's just not published, a book I call Elephants in the Lab, A Personal Odyssey into the Essence of Cancer. And the first chapter is The Making of an Outsider. That's me. That chapter would answer your question.
Perfect. I can't wait to read it.
So I've got to give you I'll be happy to send you a manuscript.
Yeah, I'd love that. I would love that.
I'll do that. Remind me in an email.
Okay.
And so it's got that in there. It's got all the South African stuff. The last chapter is the life of a dissident. you see. So basically, the first chapter and the last chapter, would fit really well in this Zoom thing. But anyway, okay. So I came back from Vietnam, didn't know what in the world I was going to do. I took a bunch of tests, and they said I looked like pretty good for science and things like that. So, and even biology and things, couldn't believe it. So I went and got a degree in biology, left engineering, got a degree in biology, loved it. Had to take a year's course in organic chemistry, loved that even more. I got a BS in biology, and then went and liked chemistry even more, got a BS in chemistry. And then I talked to an advisor. I said, do you think I could get a master's? He said, man, go for the PhD. I thought like everybody that you go in science, you go from BS to master's to PhD. No, in sciences, you go from a BS to a PhD. If you don't get the PhD, they give you a consolation prize of a master's degree.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, I went in and got a PhD in chemistry and my background in biology, and I applied it. I worked at Abbott Laboratories for a couple of years. Another brand new PhD and I were hired to set up the chemistry group in the diagnostics division at Abbott Laboratories in North Chicago, Illinois, in 1978. And that 2-year experience there taught me a lot about the pharmaceutical industry, and the diagnostics industry, and clinical diagnostics, which I helped develop and things. And then I left there, went to California, got tired of those winters, joined up with another guy, set up my own company. I've had a number of companies in California over the years, my own companies. Being your own employer is a lifesaver, because you can't be intimidated or threatened, unless I was crazy. Dave, you got to do this now. I'm holding a gun to my head.
Right.
That's about the only way you're going to do it.
Right.
And so then I worked on arthritis, emphysema, parasite, AIDS, and cancer. I've been working continuously on cancer since 1996. And in the mid 80s, in 1980, when I moved to San Francisco, that's when AIDS started. Yeah. Although it wasn't called that in those days. It didn't even have a name when I first got there, but we knew there was this weird stuff that was happening to these gay men. And it was soon they gave it the name gay-related immune deficiency, GRID. But that wasn't politically correct enough, so it wasn't long before they changed it to acquired immune deficiency syndrome, AIDS. All right. So I wanted to work on that like everybody else in the Bay Area, because it was like the Andromeda Strain, that sci-fi novel and movie. Right. And we want to work on this.
Right.
But we didn't know what it was. And then April 23rd, 1984, it was settled, in quotes, at a press conference. It was Reagan's end of his first term, his election year. And they were afraid the Democrats were going to turn AIDS into a campaign issue, since Reagan hadn't said a word about it the whole first 4 years of AIDS. So Margaret Heckler, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, hastily called a press conference and brought up Robert Gallo of the National Cancer Institute, and said he had discovered the probable cause of AIDS. And
okay, but you were working in the field at that time, trying to,
Not on AIDS. I was working on a number of those other things, like I said, simultaneously: arthritis, emphysema, parasites.
Right.
And cancer.
But you were in the science community there.
Oh, absolutely. I had my own company. In fact, I made many of the inhibitors and substrates for the diagnostic stuff, analytical things, and I made inhibitors as potential drugs on these tissue-destroying diseases like arthritis, parasites, cancer. I had a lot of collaborators there in the Bay Area and all over the world. My own little company, we did custom synthesis for materials with these collaborators. I worked with rheumatologists, parasitologists, cancer researchers, oncologists, people that treat cancer. Right.
So had you heard that they had discovered before this press conference?
No, nobody in the world did. No,
okay.
You see, April 23rd, 1984, it was just AIDS at that day. Nobody knew what it was, except I must tell you, the CDC, I learned this years later, I didn't know it then, the CDC actually understood what AIDS was as early as 1982. They knew it was chronic recreational drug use in these gay men and IV drug users.
Okay.
And that sort of helped explain why 9 out of 10 AIDS cases all the way through the 90s were men. Women obstinately refused to get AIDS. Even in 1993, when the CDC added a new disease, cervical cancer is AIDS defining, but women still refused to get AIDS. Even that was part of the AIDS definition.
Right.
Back in
Cervical cancer was part of the AIDS
cervical cancer. That was included in 1993 as AIDS defining disease. Yeah, I've got the documentation on all this stuff. On my website, looked the other day, I have about almost 16 gigabytes of data of the AIDS stuff over the years, 37 years that I've been working on it as a dissident, so to speak,
right.
Somebody who's been questioning it. Now, to get back to the story, there I was, as mainstream as you could get in those days. Synthesis, making molecules, working on this. And I assumed that the other people, that the rheumatologist got their part right, the parasitologist got his part right. Mm-hmm. My job was to get my inhibitors right, my substrates right, give it to them, let them use it, and so on and so forth. That was a big mistake. Some of them did. The parasitologists were quite good. I don't have any qualms about those, but the cancer people had absolutely no idea what they were doing. And the rheumatologists were sort of in between. Okay. And but yeah, it was an interesting thing to want to work on. I mean, I was a young scientist, I had my own company. I wanted to get out there with all these other hotshot scientists. Right. We wanted to cure AIDS, solve AIDS, be carried on people's shoulders and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Right.
So we would go to these conferences, once a month we'd have a Bay Area meeting where the academics, the business corporate types, and everybody get together for a seminar at University of California, San Francisco. Yeah. And then after it, we go out to a Chinese restaurant. And that's really why we went, to socialize. And we would talk to each other. We'd learn about what's going on, what people are doing, what's the hottest stuff, form the occasional collaboration. Right. It was just a lot of fun. It was a fun professional thing to do. Yeah. And that's how a lot of us learned about AIDS, is talking about this and then going and looking it up for ourselves. But none of us knew anything. All the scientists throughout the world learned at the same time, April 23rd, 1984, that AIDS was caused by a retrovirus.
On a press conference.
At a press conference. It became government policy on that day. And it has not changed since then. It is still government policy. And that was a precursor to SARS-CoV-2, And I mean, it really was. In fact, I gave a talk recently, it was in early June at the Red Pill Conference in Rapid City, where I showed how that whole infrastructure that's controlling the world today was set up in the 80s and 90s. Anthony Fauci started it in November of 1984, right after that press conference.
Right. It's like a trial run.
I'm sorry?
It was like a trial run.
It was. It was trial run, but then he also built that infrastructure, put all the parts together, brought them linked together, and who could push the button and make stuff happen.
Yes.
And had the influence.
Yeah.
To do it. And if you went against the dogma, you read my article, The Tyranny of Dogma. Yeah. If the thing about dogma is you cannot challenge it. You cannot discuss it. You cannot ask questions or anything. That's right. That's what happened on April 23rd, 1984. That's what happened whenever it was March of last year, I guess it was, or what, what was the COVID. You cannot, there's no discussion at all. Now, getting back to my personal experience. It was in 1985. Okay, now we've told that this virus, that AIDS is contagious, sexually transmitted, caused by this retrovirus, started in Africa and is 100% fatal. That's still the dogma to this day. All right.
Yeah.
Now, by 1985, I was another year under my belt. AIDS didn't behave anything like a contagious disease. 9 out of 10 AIDS cases were men, not women. And they were gay guys, And it turns out, I pointed out to people, I said, now, this is a very strange virus. It knows whether you're gay or straight, white or black, rich or poor, or what zip code you live in.
Right.
Or what continent, I said, it doesn't behave like a contagious disease. And I thought there would be all these wonderful discussions like we had up to that point.
Yes.
Remember I told you we go out and we all
Chinese food, talking. Yep.
Nobody would talk to me. None of my colleagues, none of my friends, none of my collaborators would talk to me when I started bringing this up. This was in 1985. All right.
Wow.
Now, what little you've seen in me right now, I like to run off at the mouth. I like to talk about what I do because it's fun. It's exciting, to share this stuff.
It's your passion.
That was the way with these other guys
right.
until that happened. And then they zipped it. I lost friends. I lost collaborators. And there was the parasitologist, this one guy. He and I, to maintain this very productive collaboration, we agreed mutually not to talk about AIDS. All right.
Wow.
Now that was what I experienced. That was like this red pill thing, like the Red Pill Expo and that the Red Pill, whatever that Matrix, I guess was the movie. That was my red pill moment. Something, this isn't right. And then I started looking at the way people behave. That was the key. I didn't know what AIDS was. I knew there's something wrong here when your colleagues totally zip it. And in fact, in the 1980s, science died. Institutional science died in the 1980s, and it was buried in the 1990s. It does not exist now. There are individual scientists, people of integrity that are still around, but institutional science is kaput.
Right.
And I saw it in those days. And we're living through that right now, unfortunately. So then I did all this years. From that point on, I have been spending my life doing what I like to do, my science and everything, but studying the sociological phenomenon, political phenomenon, and all this other sorts of stuff. And I know a lot about it. But the interesting thing of it is, over the past year and a half with this COVID stuff, I have learned more in this year and a half than I think I learned more, and I learned a lot during the AIDS years, but condensed at one point about all the different angles from all these Zoom meetings and all this stuff from all these different specialists out there, from lawyers, journalists, all these other people, bringing this talent in from all over the world, like you and I are doing right now, sharing stuff. And I've been doing that. I mean, a friend of mine, John Rappaport, he actually lives out here in Asheville, North Carolina. He moved out here the same year I did.
Yeah, he puts out some great stuff.
I didn't know it. And he's a journalist. And he called me on the phone, I guess it was February a year ago, and said, Dave, about this COVID stuff. And I said, John, I've spent 37 years of my life fighting this HIV nonsense. Then there was the first SARS and the MERS and these other things. And this is just the latest one. I said, John, this is not going anywhere. It's just another one of these things that just pops up and goes. But it didn't take me long at all, though. And then I realized, no, this is different. Yeah. And then I told John, I said, no, I'm in it full time. I'm full time working on this. And I have been since last February.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Now than I've ever been in my life. And I have been busy.
Yeah.
And learning.
What was it like for you at first when, did you hear the murmurings of the virus coming back in January before it hit? What was it like for you?
No, well, for me, it was just another bogus thing. I mean, the first SARS, the swine flu, the MERS, the Zika, the Ebola, all of those are crap. They all are. I mean, HIV didn't even start it, but it started it for me. They really are. They are bogus. They are truly bogus. The same thing about HIV. It was just declared that a virus causes drug diseases, which the CDC understood as early as 1982. But from 1984, they clicked their heels, they saluted, and they said, okay, it's a retrovirus. And they went off that way forever since.
Maybe you can explain for the audience what an AIDS-defining disease is, right? So there's certain things. And how are they different here in America than they are in Africa?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes. Well, they kept adding them over the years in the United States. They had the defining one for these gay guys was Kaposi sarcoma, these purplish blotches on their face.
That's what we're used to seeing. Yeah.
I saw them in restaurants in San Francisco, these poor gay guys. And only gay men get that. That's AIDS defining. How does that virus know to cause Kaposi sarcoma in these guys
and not in others?
Pneumocystis carinii pneumonia in IV drug users, and all these other sorts of things. I had a whole panoply of diseases. I think close to 30 of them now. That they just kept adding these diseases, these that have nothing to do with each other,
Right.
But if you happen to be gay and you had Kaposi's, you're AIDS case. If you were IV drug user, it's like with COVID-19. If you just had the symptoms, I guess you realize now they don't keep track of the flu anymore.
No,
they don't. They don't keep track of the flu. It's all COVID now.
Well, the flu's gone, David. The flu's gone.
The flu's gone. Well, actually, it's transformed into COVID because the CDC, if you go to their website, the definition of the flu, the symptoms of the flu, and the symptoms of COVID-19 are identical. They're identical. So the CDC, so that you had to have a way how to discriminate between the flu and this artificial new thing,
Right.
And they came up with the PCR test. They looked for some RNA to amplify it up. And then they say, okay, if you have the flu, but yet you're PCR positive, you don't have the flu anymore. You've got COVID-19.
Right.
Just like HIV, with AIDS. If you had antibodies to HIV, and if you had any of those, one of those 30, almost 30 defining diseases, but which were all recognized and they were sort of separate, never connected. But if you had that antibodies to HIV, by definition, you no longer had cancer, or you no longer had pneumonia, or now you're an AIDS case. Instead of treating those specific well-known diseases, now what do? They don't treat you for those. They give you these very toxic drugs, AZT, DDI, 3TC, B4T, all the protease inhibitors, over 30 different ones now. They use technology. Technology, the magic wand of technology, turned drug diseases into a sexually transmitted viral disease called AIDS, which is not sexually transmitted. It's none of those things. Right. All right. And technology, PCR, turned the flu into a non-existent pandemic, COVID-19. The same thing was with the SARS, the MERS, the Ebola. Ebola is totally crap. I studied that. I actually did that for John Rappaport once. He asked me to do some research into this Ebola stuff. So I did. I looked in the literature. There is no Ebola problem at all anywhere in the world, not even in the Congo where they were talking about it. It's totally invented. I lived in South Africa. My wife and I did for 15 months. And I've seen what goes on in South Africa, and then what the media, like the New York Times, says about what's going on that I saw with my own eyes. And you wouldn't know what they were talking about, the same thing.
Exactly. I just spoke with someone or communicated with someone in Haiti, and, we've seen the passing or the assassination. I think it's pretty well known that the Haitian president was assassinated now, because as the story goes, he did not want the COVID vaccines. I spoke with someone in Haiti 7 days after his assassination. 500 million doses of the vaccine arrived to Haiti. Now, this person, boots on the ground, told me there is no COVID in Haiti.
There is now.
There is now.
In quotes.
Yep. So I know exactly what you're talking about. This is like a emperor has no clothes type of situation, and has been since day one.
Yeah. And this has been building for decades.
Yes.
That's why what really convinced me, I tell you what convinced me when I was talking to John Rappaport, why I changed my mind like that, even though I said, oh, it's just another one of these things.
Yeah.
Was because the exact same thing was happening all around the world simultaneously.
Yes.
And then I knew, oh boy. This is a much bigger battle than the AIDS stuff. When has it ever in human history has the whole world done the same thing at the same time?
Exactly. And the same rhetoric. The same, it's the whole media mockingbird, right? They're the same phrases being touted over and over and over again.
I
all
know.
over the world.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
absolutely fascinating.
I should let you start asking me questions or
Yeah.
whatever.
So
I'm sort of dominating this
no, no,
thing.
no. This is wonderful. Wonderful. I want people to get to know you because, for the lay person, we're out here. We don't work in science. We're all here trying to wrap our brains around the science, but we need to understand that it's like being a realtor, right? There's inside. If you're a realtor, you know the other realtors. You all talk about
Yeah.
deals. You know what the market's doing. This is the same thing in science, and that's what I want people to understand. And you've
Right.
known these characters,
I
right?
know.
Like Fauci,
I
Carrie
know.
Mullis, all you know these people. These were your peers. And
Yeah.
so for you to
I
be,
don't ever consider Fauci a peer. Never.
and let's talk about that because Carrie Mullis also did not see Fauci as his peer. I've seen videos of him calling Fauci out, saying he was never a real scientist.
No,
He
he wasn't.
was a yes man, and he never invented or contributed in a impactful way towards science at all. That he was
No.
more of an administrator type person who liked to be in front of the camera.
Yeah. He's a Goebbels type.
Right.
Goebbels type. Carrie and I were friends. Uh, we both went to Georgia Tech, but I didn't know it. He was 2 years ahead of me, and he graduated, went to UC Berkeley, got his PhD, and I went to stayed at Georgia Tech and did my 3 degrees there.
Right.
And then I didn't meet him until it was in California through our mutual friend, Professor Peter Duesberg at UC Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. And Carrie, I was working, like I said, my own little companies there. And Carrie, I think it was Cetus. I think that was the company he was working at, which I knew very well. I used to drive by it a lot, but I didn't know Carrie was there. I didn't even know who he was at the time. And he was, in 1983, he invented PCR.
Yeah.
And, in 1993, he got the Nobel Prize for it. And he started, I forget how it was, he came into this AIDS stuff, but he wrote the forward to Peter Duesberg's book, Inventing the AIDS Virus. Carrie did. And that's a great book.
Interesting. Yeah.
Everybody should lay their hands on. Well, it's not in print anymore, but you can get audio book of it, and I've got the audio book too, and it's extraordinary. It documents that whole thing, that whole infrastructure that was put together during that period,
Right.
and that people, you read that book, you understand what's going on with COVID.
Yes.
It's the same players.
Yep. Same
Same
players.
stuff,
That's
same approach.
even your
Inventing
paper,
AIDS
The
virus.
Tyranny of Dogma, in your paper is written in 2015. You read this paper, and I'm going to put it in the show notes so everybody can read it, because you read this paper and it gives you the plan. It explains how this happened. And you wrote this in 2015.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, it was the AIDS thing. So
Yes.
that was, and it was all these other sorts of things I was saying. I wasn't clairvoyant. I mean, now in retrospect, I'm learning how many people understood the same thing.
Right.
But so it was, but we were a small number, but there's probably a few hundred of us. Might be at 1,000, I don't know, which is a small number on the planet,
Right.
planetary scale. Physicians, scientists. We had this thing, we called it the Group for the Reappraisal of AIDS, Rethinking AIDS. I was I was first president of it, and I think Carrie was a member of it. And I met Carrie through Peter Duesberg there, who wrote the book Inventing the AIDS Virus. That's how I got to meet Carrie, and he and I got to be friends. I learned he went to Georgia Tech like I did.
Right.
We
Did
went,
Carrie intend for the PCR test to be a diagnostic test for AIDS?
You miss it. Everybody gets this wrong. They say Carrie invented a PCR test. He did not. Carrie invented PCR, polymerase chain reaction.
Okay.
You see, which is a big difference.
There's a difference, yes.
It's a technique. It's a research technique. It's either a manufacturing technique or research technique that allows you. It's basically a molecular photocopy machine. If you've got a teeny tiny little trace of nucleic acid, either RNA or DNA, it has to be DNA in order to do this amplification, this photocopier thing.
Right.
Then you can amplify it at billions or trillions of fold to the point where you can actually study it.
Okay.
You know,
Yep.
and other people took that technique and then turned it into a test, which is not a test, but they turned it into a test.
I see.
Carey had absolutely nothing to do with that. In fact, he doesn't. He's really upset that people were
Yes.
using that technique, and it has technical problems that are only real problems if you're trying to use it as a test. I mean, and they're insurmountable problems at this point. But that wasn't the reason why Carey was against the PCR test. He was against it because there's no way to interpret it properly. There's no way to interpret it at all. It has no meaning.
Right.
You know, you take a little tiny little bit of material and you amplify it up. You don't know where it came from. You don't know the significance of it. I use, I forget, there was this virologist guy who what did he say? He said, studying DNA sequences is like trying to determine whether or not somebody has bad breath by looking at their fingerprints. And for me, I tell people the PCR test, you know, that image of a photocopy machine, just piles of, I said, it's like looking at a pile of bricks from a demolished building. You know, you've seen these piles of bricks.
Right.
And then trying to discern what the structure looked like before it was demolished.
Right. That's a great analogy.
You know, it's an interpretation problem.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And you're making a gigantic leap. Going, the only way that you can do it is if you went the reverse. If you had the building and you watched them demolish it, and then you got the pile of bricks. Aha! Now those bricks came from there.
Right.
But you see another pile of bricks, you can't do that.
Who brought the test to market? Do you know?
Oh Lord, the first one I don't remember. I wasn't interested in that. I just remember it was in the 90s. David Ho used the test a lot to come up with the so-called viral load.
Yeah. Using
the PCR test. Let me pull back just a moment.
Yeah.
And tell you about these things, and we'll come back to it. If I forget to come back to it, remind me. It has to do with the PCR viral load stuff. Remember just as with the SARS-CoV-2, nobody has it in a bottle. The CDC admitted last December of last year they don't have any to validate their PCR test. That's the same thing with HIV. The package inserts that come with the HIV antibody test, with the viral load test, and the Western blot, those so-called HIV tests. They say in the inserts that there's no recognized reference standard. You cannot use the test to detect AIDS, to detect the presence of HIV, or to confirm the presence of HIV. I was involved with the, what was it called? I can't remember now. OMSJ, Office of Medical and Scientific Justice. We won 55 cases, criminal cases. Most of the time, all we had to do was just either show these package inserts to a judge or read them out to a jury. And frequently, we didn't even have to go that far. Once we showed the information, it didn't even go to trial because they could not convict people that they were exposed to anybody to HIV based on these HIV tests.
Because it said on the packaging, just to be clear, it said on the packaging.
In the package insert that comes with every box of one of those tests. Yes. And
much like the mask that says on the box that it does not protect you from coronavirus.
Insert.
Okay, so it's more like
what it says on the box. There's a piece of paper, you know, you get, and they open it up, gives you
like the vaccine.
Everything is in it, how you use it, what you're not supposed to use it for. This is FDA mandated stuff.
Right. Okay.
And I think I have examples of that on my website. I certainly have them in the tons of literature. And we actually changed military law. One of our cases, a fellow, I think he was in the Air Force. I can't remember right now. There were so many of them, but it was military. And he was convicted of a felony of exposing somebody to HIV. and they lost an appeal, and then finally reappealed up to the second highest court in the land. It was the highest military court there was, and they threw it out, and they changed military law, and you never heard about this. You would have thought something like that would have been on CNN and been on the news and everything, where the military law was changed. Now, if you're in the military, you cannot be charged with HIV crimes at all. Zippo.
Because they have proven that it doesn't exist. If you can't test it, test for it.
I know, but that's beside the point. If you're a con, it's a con. You tell them that this is what this does, but it doesn't do that at all. It's a con job. Yeah. And if you look deep enough, though, it's a con job that's skin deep. It's real thin. You peel it off real quick, and you expose it. That's why there is so much censorship. It's so easy to expose this stuff. I was in, and let me tell you, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're an average citizen or a head of state. Nobody can talk about this stuff, challenge it, or ask questions in public. Three presidents, it was both Bush's and Bill Clinton, either during a campaign or after they got elected, proposed to reduce the exorbitant AIDS budget. It was way out of whack compared to the problem in the country. And of course, they never did. They never spoke of it again, and they actually increased the budget. And then in 2000, I was one of the President Thabo Mbeki's AIDS advisory panelists in South Africa. Peter Duisberg was.
This was the meeting. This is a meeting that you went to discuss, have a real scientific discussion about AIDS. 2/3 of the panel were the mainstream people, from the Department of Health and Human Services, like the CDC or wherever, and other experts from around the world. 2/3 of the panel were on the HIV side. All right. 1/3 were the dissidents or the critics, like me, Peter Duisberg, and a number of other scientists and physicians, like I say, around the world. We didn't have their numbers, but there we were. And President Thabo Mbeki recognized this, coming back to your thing about the different definition of AIDS in Africa and in the United States. Because they don't have a drug problem in Africa, they don't have those symptoms, the AIDS-defining symptoms like they do in the United States. So there was the Bangui definition in 1980, 85, I believe it was. The U.S. pressured the WHO to come up with a definition of AIDS in Africa, because remember, part of the policy is AIDS started in Africa. All right. So you have to come, but yet, how do you can't use the test? They don't have the same symptoms. So they came up with a definition for AIDS in Africa: fever, diarrhea, persistent cough, weight loss, and TB. Those are the AIDS-defining diseases in Africa. Those are the diseases of poverty and malnutrition. Right. You see, that are there. But they've that magic wand of technology or whatever, has redefined it. Like with the COVID-19, you don't have flu anymore. It's now COVID-19. Right. And if you're suffering from fever, diarrhea, persistent cough, weight loss, or TB in Africa, you're an AIDS case. Right. But if you're in America, that can't happen because we don't have a lot of TB floating around. No. They did add TB in 1993, though, to the AIDS definition. But 90% of African AIDS patients and U.S. AIDS patients, if they flew to the other continent, they'd be cured of AIDS by definition. Because that continent, because they don't have the defining disease anymore. They don't come under that definition. And they added one non-disease in the United States in 1993. It was one laboratory test, fewer than 200 CD4 T cells per microliter of blood. It's a lab test, one of your white blood cells. All right. If you have that, that's an AIDS-defining disease. If fewer than that and you're HIV positive, you're an AIDS case in the United States, no matter if you're an Olympic athlete, climbing mountains, or whatever you're doing. Right. But Canada did not accept that definition. So if you're an AIDS case in the United States, under that definition, you cross the border into Canada, you don't have AIDS anymore. And Europe is the same way. Oh my
So you
gosh.
see how crazy this is. Now, I know we're jumping all over the place. Let's get back to that, the viral load thing, remember?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, the PCR viral load. Now that you know that there is none of these tests for HIV. None of
Right.
these test for SARS-CoV-2.
Right.
And nobody has a bottle of HIV or SARS-CoV-2
Right.
or stuff like that in the world, except there
No
is.
isolated virus.
Yes, nobody's ever done that.
Right.
All right. So so what do? You don't have the culprit there. So that's where the technology comes in, and you just hope that you wave your hands and everybody will buy it. That's what they did for a long time with HIV, for decades. And so it has the viral load had to do with the therapy. It goes hand in hand with the drugs. The whole point of the diagnostic test is to fuel candidates for the drugs, for the therapies,
the solution.
the solution, right?
Yeah.
And so they had to have it, and they use this viral load. His word viral in it, which means it must be testing or looking for a virus, and load must be a lot of it,
right?
And that you should be able to see if it's going up or going down. And they use this polymerase chain reaction with their viral load. They call it viral load to measure your how much RNA, viral RNA, is in your blood, and then they would give it a number, and then see if it increased over time or decreased over time.
Yep. And we're seeing with the amplification of the PCR test, it's much like you just described with, you can cross the border and you wouldn't have AIDS anymore. Because with the COVID testing, I think at one point there was over 70 some NFL players that had tested positive for COVID. Well, but then all of a sudden they were all false negatives.
You mean false positives?
False positives. I mean, they were all false positives. Right. And from state to state, come to find out, they were using different amplification settings. So some states were as much as 45, while other states were, 25 or 30. And so that right there would make the difference between a positive and a negative test.
Yeah. Same thing with the same thing with the Western blot test, the same thing with the for HIV, the same thing for the antibody test. It was just like it was very subjective, and it's always red. The test is always red. It's just how red is positive. Is it pink? Right. Is that positive? And with the viral load, they could tune it. They did this with HIV. They're doing it with all these cycles. I mean, they learned it. They learned it with HIV.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the idea is that when they would wanted to see if people that had AIDS, if all these toxic drugs were going to work for them, all these nucleoside analogs, which are cancer chemotherapy. By the way, almost all the HIV drugs have a black box warning label.
Yep.
Almost all of them. They're very dangerous.
And for those that we've talked about black box on this podcast before, but for those people who don't know what black box warning is, what is that?
Well, the black box warning label, it's the most severe warning that the FDA requires on the outside of a box of an FDA-approved drug before they pull it off the market. In other words, they will allow that drug to be on the market until at some point it causes so much harm or damage, and they're convinced of it, then they withdraw FDA approval. But they've never withdrawn any of the HIV drugs. They've never replaced them. They just keep adding new ones to it, and that whole system is just total kaput now. They still have the black box warning on there, and they've killed. I think the estimate was they killed about 300,000 gay men with AZT in the 80s and 90s. Anthony Fauci was one of the big drivers of that.
Yep.
And then they kept lowering the dose so they didn't kill them so fast. They were killing them really fast in there. It was like 1.5 grams they were giving these guys a day, 1.5 grams of this poison, chemotherapy for cancer. The AZT was so toxic that it was invented back in the 60s for cancer chemotherapy. It was so toxic that the inventor didn't even patent it.
Whoa.
He didn't even patent it.
He didn't even want credit.
pulled it off the wall, off the shelf and started doing these clinical trials. They knew it real quick. The gay guys that were on the placebo knew who was getting the active drug because the people on the active drug were getting really, really sick and they weren't. So they figured, this is going to sound really bizarre. So then they went and got those guys to give them some of their drug because even though it was making them sick, they thought it's still they wouldn't give it to you unless it helps you somehow.
Right. They had hope for it.
And it totally destroyed the clinical trials. They were bogus. That was approved. And Anthony Fauci was involved in that. And then they still gave it out there and they killed all those guys. They started lowering the doses over time, and they weren't killing so many so fast.
This is what I'm wondering with COVID is that a lot of, and this is a scary thing. I'm concerned about people that are going to the hospital for treatment. I'm concerned about the treatment because remdesivir has been the only emergency use authorized treatment. I think they're allowed to do HCQ and ivermectin now, but even if you mention ivermectin to physicians, they about lose their minds. They don't know. They don't want to touch it. And so this remdesivir has been known to cause organ failure.
Yeah, it's poison.
Yeah. And that's Anthony Fauci's baby.
I know it. I mean, his guy's gotten away with murder for decades.
Yes.
He gotten away with it. What's going to stop him? It's like a mafia boss,
Yep. He controls all the money. Nobody gets grants if they don't do what he says.
Right. It shuts people up. No, let me go back to my South Africa story about that, because here's to show you how powerful it is. Where all what really, I knew this was big stuff because I'd seen it before with the AIDS stuff. In South Africa, on Becky's AIDS panel, I watched with my own eyes. Bill Clinton torpedoed that panel. He did. He sent 3 Black Americans dressed up. They're big, strong, handsome, good-looking guys that looked like, every one of them looked like an FBI agent, but they're supposed to be doctors. I don't know. They never said a word when they were there. Nobody knew who they were. And it almost shut the meeting down, the conference down right there, because the people from South Africa who were putting this together, they didn't know who these guys were, where they came from, why they were in there all of a sudden. And the advisory panel almost shut down before it got started.
Wow.
But then somebody from a spokesperson from the government came in and rescued the thing, sort of temporarily. Said, no, President Clinton asked that these guys be there to observe. And Thabo and Becky said, okay, yes, they can. They invited people, they're not going to exclude folks. And so then these guys sat there, and then they sat like, like they were really military types, and with these really stern expressions on their faces. And there you have the guys from around the tables, horseshoe kind of table. Here you got these 3 guys there, and you got all these mainstreamers out there. The NIH, the CDC, and all these other places, Right. And these 3 guys were Clinton's eyes and ears. And I guarantee you, he was a very, very basically there to let the guys know that whatever went on in this place, the government was going to know about it from these guys. All right. So Now that was before it ever even got started. They just came in right before we getting sat down, and all that turmoil, and now everything changed. Peter Duesberg. Now we're about to start, and Peter Duesberg was invited to give the first talk, and he had a PowerPoint presentation, and he was ready to go and start presenting his stuff. And the mainstream people raised Cain. They said, no presentations. If they're presentations, we won't participate.
It's a conference.
At a conference that they agreed to attend. All right. So the organizers agreed to keep it again, to keep it from totally just dissolving right before everybody's eyes. They said, okay, no presentation. So all we did that day, went around the tables there. Everybody talked 20 minutes individually, just talked whatever they wanted to say. And that was it, And so there was no presentation of data. It was just, it was a charade.
Wow.
And these guys, Well, I don't, did I put that in that tyranny of dogma? I don't know if I
Yes.
put that in. Oh,
Yes.
that's in there. So people could
Yeah.
read about that. I don't have to keep talking about that. That's in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
about what went on down there. And it got worse. I mean, they had, there was supposed to be another meeting a month later, a
Mhm.
second meeting. And the government found out that the mainstream people had a email campaign around the world.
Mhm.
It led to the Durban Declaration, where they basically just said they were right, we were wrong, and that was it. And some of the members of the mainstream signed that panel signed that thing. And of course, that really upset the government. And even the South Africa Broadcasting Corporation asked the government if they could cover the whole conference live, and the government said sure. The mainstream people, of course, said no, they wouldn't
Right.
participate if it was,
Right.
you know. So they did everything they could, including coming up with the Durban Declaration to say, you know, basically all it said was that anybody that says anything different is wrong. Sort of like
Right.
what Anthony Fauci does right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he is
And,
science, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, and that's, you know, a head of state got squashed by this.
Right.
Thabo Mbeki got squashed by this.
Right.
The Clinton and the two Bushes who wanted to lower the funding of AIDS immediately got pressured, and they refused to do that.
Right.
So,
So
you know,
I guess what people are probably wondering, you know, because I'm thinking it is people are sick, right? With what they're calling AIDS. People are sick in America, and then they let people or push a narrative that seems like Africa is rampant with AIDS, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we
right.
heard that all the way through the
Yeah,
80s
yeah.
and 90s. It's just crawling with AIDS.
Right.
But so what were people sick with?
They weren't. There was a population explosion. Peter Duesberg and I wrote 2 papers on this stuff. We got the data. South Africa has the best data out of Africa anyway. We got that data.
Mhm.
We published a paper on this about these population explosions that are going on in Africa.
Right.
They
had the
doubled
normal sickness of like poverty, like you said, like diarrhea, right?
fever, fever, diarrhea, persistent cough, weight loss, and TB. Right.
Right. Right.
But they doubled their population. There are over 1 billion people in sub-Saharan Africa now. I think it's like at the time it got started, maybe 500 million. You know, and during an AIDS pandemic.
Right.
And I remember when I was in South Africa, a lot of the coffin makers built all these coffins. They thought they were going to do a booming business, and they were standing in, and there was nobody to take them.
Right. It's
I
all
remember seeing them stacked up.
perception. It's just mind blowing because it's all perception. It's just like what's happening in Haiti. You know, they have trouble there. You're gonna send 500 million vaccines. These people need security. They need clean water.
Yeah. They're not going to get it.
No, because and all, but these people don't really want to solve the world's problems.
No. Do you want to know what I think's going on?
Yes.
I think it's World War III. We're in World War III right now.
I do too. I've said it over and over again.
It's the destruction of the world. All you got to do is look at all wars. All wars are about theft.
Yep.
And I've studied a lot of this stuff over the years, especially when I had my red pill moment in 1985. And I really tried to look about what's going on in the world all over. And I looked at all these wars over the time and who was helping when I found out IBM was helping the Nazis, you know, with during World War II. And we didn't destroy the chemical plants and stuff like that. And
we took in their scientists.
Many people don't care. They make money no matter what.
Yep.
You know, and then before the war was over, it was Roosevelt and who was the prime minister? I can't remember. You know, it was and Stalin, and Roosevelt, and I can't think of his name. The British prime minister. Anyway, they got together to plan how to rebuild the world after the war. And it's like, just think about it. If you have like an urban renewal policy or something anywhere, you want to come in and you want to just see a nice piece of land or property, what do? You bulldoze it. You know, if you've got the power and the know-how, or if you've got the political people to condemn an area or something like that, then or rezone it or whatever, you know, money people can go in and basically just demolish it and then take it over and then build whatever they want to.
Yep.
when I saw this, I said, why do people ever ask themselves, why was it New York? Why was it Manhattan and New York and California, the two hardest hit places in the United States?
Mm-hmm.
They're the two richest states.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, they have all these resources. So demolish them, urban renewal, just totally wipe it out. Now they can just go in and take over, and build whatever they want to build. It's theft. It's theft. And they also don't care about people. I mean, the Nazis, it was about theft too. They wanted to, that's why they invaded Russia. They wanted living space. It's theft.
Yeah.
And, but people are there. It's like, why do we allow Africans and Indians and do everything we can to not help them, thrive?
Yes.
It's because
plant things that make them sick.
We want the Congo. We want those rare earths that are involved in all this electronic stuff. We want their resources, and the people are in the way. So that's why Bill Gates and other people are going around the world killing people with vaccines and stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's on a global scale. It's not just Africa anymore. It's not just India. It's the whole globe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what these injections are all about. They're poisons, and they are intended to wipe out hundreds of millions of people, at least hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah.
It's intentional.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that.
Let's talk about these vaccines. So, I mean, I think it was
Don't call them vaccines.
Well,
I guess
therapies,
the public
poisons, the poison arrow. I don't know what to.
These
Injections.
Yeah.
There are over 700 injections waiting, from what I hear.
Different ones?
Yeah.
Oh.
They're in development.
Yeah. I knew there were hundreds. I know what you're talking about. There were hundreds of SARS-CoV-2 vaccines, hundreds of them.
Yes.
In development. I thought you meant new ones, but I knew they were for SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about other things besides SARS-CoV-2.
Well, it's certainly very interesting because I know the CDC has removed from their website anything about natural immunity. So in the government's eyes, natural immunity no longer exists. All immunity comes from vials now, from shots. It's not recognized to have natural immunity. Advising people who have already had COVID to get vaccinated. Do we all now have to go back, and get vaccinated for chickenpox? Because, I mean, we have no immunity because, we had them when we were kids, but natural immunity doesn't count.
Yeah.
This is insanity. Absolute insanity.
It's worse. We're in the process now of outdoing the Nazis. That's really what it's about right now. I mean,
that's a profound statement.
These injections and all this stuff, the destruction of the world, the close, everything is designed to shut the world down, to destroy the world, kill a sizable fraction of the global population, kill them, wipe them out, get them out of the way.
Yeah.
We are in the way, and people have to realize that it's not this. Here I'm a scientist, and a lot of people a year ago, when they got me on all these Zoom things, everybody wanted me to talk about science. I said, okay, I can talk about science. But I knew what was going on. Mm-hmm. And Celia Farber and I, a journalist that I've known for many years, we wanted to get into the stuff that we know what's going on.
Right.
Because all they wanted, you're a scientist, talk about science,
Right.
And I said, there's no science to it, but I will do what you want,
Right.
There is no science to this. Science is dead. This is murder on a colossal scale. And that is what's going on. To me, I look at all this preliminary stuff that we've talked about, right now.
Yep.
It has to lead up to it because it's using science as science in quotes. It's not science. It's
not science.
And just to make it sound big and important, because science, most people think of the word science, I can't possibly understand it.
That's right.
Leave that to the authorities.
Right.
And let me say this. This might help some people. When people ask me how would you, I say you don't have to be a scientist and know something's really screwy going on. Mm-hmm. Think about your own personal experience. Whenever something in our personal lives as a community or as individuals that's going wrong, we know it before the government does.
Yes.
We always know it because it's happening to us. We experience it. We know it. All right. So When it gets bad enough, what do? Does the government come and say, offer us help? No, we go banging on the door.
Yep.
Or voting for this person or voting that person out. We have to raise Cain. We are the ones that are bringing it to the fore, and letting everybody know about it. Whenever the sole and first and sole source of information is the government, they're lying. If that's your only source, if your only source of information is the government, it's a totalitarian move. It's a lie. Automatically, that's all you need to know, is that's the only place this information is coming from.
Yep.
That's why I joined up with John, just like that.
Yep. Yep. And we have to be told every day that there's a pandemic. We have to be reminded by wearing a mask.
Well, it's propaganda. And the point of propaganda is not to convince you of anything. No, it's not to convince you of anything. Propaganda is pounding away, make you scared, make you very fearful, such that you can't think.
Right.
Fear destroys the ability to think.
Right.
This has been known, God, who knows for how long. All right. This is what all totalitarian regimes, all military people have known, shock and awe. When I was in Vietnam, shock and awe, B-52s, raising all this cane,
Right.
And it makes people go crazy. The fear, once people are really, really scared, they can't think. They really literally can't think. And if you can't think, you're helpless.
Right.
And you'll just be led anyway. That's the purpose of propaganda, is to stop people from thinking. It's not to convince them of anything that's right. It's to stop them from thinking, and then they will just follow the leader.
What do you think the plan is with these injections in terms of, you get the first two? What's the plan from here out? What do you see happening over the next?
It's just going to keep going. I mean, I saw just today, they're starting to develop these RNA vaccines for the flu now. The old-fashioned flu. And I mean, they're not. The thing is this technology, this RNA stuff, and these nanoparticles and all this stuff, it's been sitting out there waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
Now they've got this great opportunity to take advantage and put everything people wanted. People wanted. I'm talking about the people that produce this stuff. Yeah. They want to get it out there and make money off of it. There's a great opportunity for them to do that right now.
Yes.
So,
and then probably a Nobel Prize too, from what I understand.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I hate the Nobel Prize. It's done far more harm than good. It's awarding. It's basically giving credentials. A lot of these prizes, they give. It's like giving credentials to people that have been bought. Not all the time, but nowadays that's almost always it is. The more prizes and awards that you see listed as somebody, the more suspicious I get. Nobody can be that productive.
Right. Right. Can you explain how this, the vaccine works, right? Because we've established through this conversation
how the injection works.
Yes, how the injection works. Sorry. Yeah. Look at the brainwashing is sinking in.
Well, no, I mean, there's a difference. Because if you meant vaccine in the old sense, that's a different explanation.
That's right.
From the explanation of this injection.
Yes.
They're completely different.
Oh, of course. They've added another definition to the Merriam-Webster. Yeah.
As a scientist, what we say is orthogonal. They're at right angles. They have nothing in common.
Yep.
The vaccines are normally protein-based. The old-fashioned vaccines, the polio and all these other ones, were protein-based. And the proteins, with your immune system recognizes the proteins, make antibodies against the proteins. All right.
Right.
This is genetic engineering. These techniques were developed for genetic engineering, and one of the thing was they wanted to correct genetic diseases, which is a noble thing, if you have sickle cell anemia or something like that, it's basically a single gene disease. A lot of or hemophilia, single gene disease. They know exactly the amino acid that's gone wrong, got misplaced.
Right.
And it's easily understood. And so the idea is to go in there and replace that bad gene. You don't even have to replace it. You can stay there. It's not really functioning that much, but put in a good one.
Right.
And how do you, so you've got to be able to insert it in the nucleus of some cells such that it's there forever, and it can be, work for the rest of your life.
Right.
And then it codes for that factor VIII that you need for hemophilia.
Right.
And it will constantly keep producing factor VIII. And that information is in the DNA. And of course, the DNA gets transcribed into RNA, and the RNA gets translated into factor VIII. Now you've solved your hemophilia problem,
right,
in principle.
Right.
But you have to be able to get that genetic material inside the cell. And that's a real toughie,
right,
to do that. And they've been able to do it over the decades. They figured out how to get this genetic material inside cells. And they can actually, the cells start putting out the proteins. The problem is none of them's ever worked. And the failure is that they're toxic.
Yeah.
Yet, the principle was noble. It was
right.
really noble. I don't have a problem with that principle.
Right.
But the techniques, and they struggle with it, and they try to do this. They've been trying to do it with cancer and other things, and it just never works. It's always failed. They're using those techniques of getting genetic material inside cells now for this injection that they call the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And the idea here, again, is to have the genetic material inside your cell, and it gives the instructions now. Instead of injecting the protein in your body like an old-fashioned vaccine, they inject the instructions to make that protein in you. All right?
Mm-hmm.
But now they put the instructions to make that protein inside your cells. And then those cells, they figured out how to do that. And then those cells now can make that viral protein inside your cell, and it spits it out, such that your immune system can now recognize that viral protein and make antibodies against it. That's the principle.
That's the theory. Yeah.
In other words, it's a long, drawn-out way to do the same thing that they used to do. Instead of injecting the protein, they inject the instructions to make the protein in your body to now it make the protein, and then take it from that point on.
Right.
There's numerous problems with that. On the drawing board, there's numerous problems with that.
Yep.
Think about it. In the past, if it's a virus or a bacteria or anything, that's alien to you. It's not inside your cells. It's separate. It's invading your body. All right. And it's outside your cells. Your body recognizes it, does it, takes. In fact, this happens all the time, every day, every second, every moment of every day. This is going on. Your body's doing this, eliminating. You never even knew it.
That's right.
Okay.
It's your immune system.
It's alien. It's alien. Your body sees it, takes care of it. Never gets inside your cells.
Yep.
All right. Now, now you got a problem. If you put it inside the cells, now your cells are the enemy. Your cells are enemy because they are producing it. It's sticking on the outside of your cells. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's numerous problems, but this is just the one off the drawing board that has to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You now have your own cells throughout your body. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows where these things are going to go completely, but they look like they're going throughout your body.
Mm-hmm.
And they're inside your cells. They're producing it. And now these are foreign proteins. They're on the surface of your cells. Not just floating around in your blood, but they're attached to your cell. Mm-hmm. Your tissues, the lining of your vessels and your organs and things. Mm-hmm. Your immune system is going to go nuts. It's going to start attacking itself, your own tissues. And that's exactly what's going on. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I think that was by design. I don't think every last person who was doing it thought that. But somebody up that chain, that had this going, they knew this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. They absolutely knew it was going to happen.
And this is what we're seeing is autoimmune issues. We're seeing Guillain-Barré syndrome, right? We're seeing that. We're seeing ITP, that's what happened to my son with a flu shot.
Yeah.
Was ITP. And that's when I began to learn about vaccines.
Well, the vaccines, these genetic injections are to vaccines what the atomic bomb was to regular bombs. in terms of their destructive.
Great analogy.
All right.
Yeah.
These things are so destructive and horrifying that there's no way to know all the consequences.
That's right.
I mean, the just that protein by itself, just the protein, not all the other stuff that's being attached to yourself, just that is already toxic material. It's known to be toxic for 20 years. All right.
Yeah.
And cause problems. Okay. So that's one thing. There's another problem that I, as a scientist, knew right off the bat. As soon as I heard that the receptor for this thing is ACE2, ACE2,
yes,
angiotensin converting enzyme 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's also angiotensin converting enzyme 1. Mm-hmm. These are part of the renin-angiotensin system. They're enzymes, and they're like an accelerator and a brake for a machine. You know, your body, for all these hormones, these various peptide hormones that your body's communicating from cells to cells, tissues to tissues, and they have all these enzymes and things. It's amazing what your body can do.
Absolutely.
Take these things in there, fine tune it and everything, you know.
Yep.
And if it was just one cell or one little tissue or some places over here, it wouldn't be such a problem because it's localized. Right. But now you've got these ACE receptors all throughout your body.
Systemic.
Okay. And you've got these the protein. Now you're interfering with this exquisitely regulated system with this ACE1, ACE2, plus all the other enzymes, these hormones that your body's trying to regulate. It's like an ecosystem, economical system. You know, you got transportation going here, we got to deliver over there, we got to turn this on, turn that off. This is chemical communication. These things. The ACE turns it on, the ACE2 turns it off, inactivates it, goes this way or whatever. And then as soon as I heard that the ACE2 was the receptor for this thing, before anything else, I knew, that's a serious problem, because that's going to interrupt with no predictable way. You don't know what it's going to do. All you know is it's going to screw up those messages.
Right.
Different people are going to have different problems. Yep. When that system is interfered with, and you can't predict it. We're just going to have to see it and catalog them. Oh, we're seeing this now in these people. Oh, we're seeing that in these people. And then there's the other things. We don't know all the stuff that's in that injection. It's since it's not approved. Mm-hmm. They can hide all that information that's in there. All we know is it's got RNA in it. It's got some lipid to help it get inside the cells and things like that. But we don't know what else is in there. It looks like they might have these graphene things that are in there, which can be very, very dangerous. I've been worrying about those things for years, but from a cancer point of view, not from this. And it is a nightmare.
Yeah,
I have a huge library of stuff. I'm trying to keep up on all of this stuff, and I can't. And they want to keep, and we don't even know what is all in there. This is just the stuff that we either know that's in there,
right?
And we don't know that if they're going to keep adding it to it or add other things to it,
right? Which is the boosters. What is this? Yeah, that.
It's a total mystery.
Yeah. What's the psychology of using the word vaccine? You talk about, your interest in kind of the sociological point of view. Yeah. There's a psychology of using the word vaccine. What are your thoughts on that? Because this isn't a vaccine.
Well, I know that's why I don't use the word. Yep. A vaccine gives the impression of protection.
Yes.
And frankly, I used to really believe all this crap about vaccines, that they were good for you and everything.
I did too.
I'm to the point now where I don't think a vaccine has ever done any good ever in history. I think they're all dangerous. Yep. I really do now, because I did this one vaccine at a time. Mm-hmm. And the thing that really, it was sort of like another red pill moment for me was when I learned about polio vaccine.
Oh, that's a whole topic. I'm going to have you back because
believe me, I know. But when I saw the fact that during World War II, every time you have a catastrophe like a flood or a war or something, you always have these diseases that go with it. A lot of them have to do with diseases of poverty, malnutrition, and poison, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And in the United States, whooping cough, polio, and a third thing was happening during the war. I think they were all poisoned that were happening to people. And right after the war, back just Salk vaccine was available in the early 50s, polio and the whooping cough had almost all disappeared on their own.
Yep.
Almost background levels before any intervention. Same thing with the measles. Same thing with all of these other things. They were going away on their own. And then they come in with a Salk vaccine, the Sabin vaccine, and they took credit for it.
Yeah.
They took credit for the vaccine ending the polio thing when it was almost totally gone before the vaccines came out. And that's true of every vaccine that I know of. I mean, I haven't looked at every one of them, but the common ones, that's true of all of those.
Yeah, I question the validity of a lot of that science now, because you're right. There seems to be a political or socio economic issue, or something is going on in the world when these things happen. And how, like in our situation right now with COVID, how is it that it's infiltrating? Why is climate an issue now? Why is digital currency an issue now? Why are all these issues being incorporated, and we have to deal with these right now while we're supposedly going through a pandemic? Why is that?
It's part of the plan. I mean, chaos. It's like all these new products that are being unleashed now. During the turmoil, you can unleash these things. Nobody's paying attention. Just get them out there, and just do it. And, it's supposed to be it's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity.
People are taking opportunity. The thing is, money has killed science. Money is the weapon. You cannot have science without questions. People think that engineers and scientists, you get them confused, and technologists. No, there's a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
Scientists ask questions. Engineers solve problems. And what we've got now is a bunch of these, what I call technologists out there. The PCR people, all this is technology. Technologists are people that use the results of engineers. Engineers create this gizmo or that, solve a problem. And the people that use their stuff are the technologists, and that's what's going on. And people are confusing these technologists with scientists. No, they're not. Scientists ask questions.
Right.
And they give you the difference between engineer and scientist. I tell people this a lot. And I went to Georgia Tech. I admire engineers. I like them. They have their feet planted well on the ground. You don't have to be an expert to know if an engineer succeeds or fails. The airplane flies or it crashes. The bridge works or it doesn't.
Right.
And with science, it's hard to know when the scientist is right. Even scientists themselves, it's hard to know when they're right. And we're almost always wrong. Scientists have more in common with artists than we do with engineers.
Yes.
And people, when you talk to Anthony Fauci and all these medical people, that they apply technology. They're not scientists. They apply technology. Anthony Fauci doesn't have a clue what science is, And when I couldn't ask my questions or discuss things, remember?
Yes.
Back in 85, with other scientists, we were used to doing this all the time. And then that door slammed shut, then that was the death of science.
Yeah. How important.
And now we're having the death of journalism. We've had the death of journalism for a long time ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dead too. I mean, the whole infrastructure of society is kind of corrupt or destroyed.
Yeah. And that's one thing I think people really need to hear is how dangerous is it that there is no arguing back and forth, because it's my understanding in the community of science, you work tightly together because you're driven to prove each other wrong. So you can get to the right.
We're trying to show off. We actually like each other. I mean, we used to go to meetings a lot. I'm old enough, back in the 70s, and go to these conferences in the early, mid 80s. And that was when it was still somewhat healthy. Science was still somewhat healthy. You could get out there and you have all these discussions that I told you about. We would talk hours on end. I mean, look at me. I'm talking constantly, We've got lots to say. We're interested and curious, and we want to talk with other people, and they're the same way, You learn stuff by doing that. And you could get very heated too. You could have opposite points of view, and really get heated. But after you were done, you go out and have a beer together or something like that.
Right.
It wasn't hatred or anything like that, you know.
Right.
It was like athletes getting together, knocking heads or whatever, you know, during the competition. But then they're buddies, you know. After it's over. That's gone.
Yeah.
That's gone. I think that's gone in journalism. It's disappeared in journalism. The most scared professionals I've come across in my life are physicians, and this happened during the AIDS days of physicians, because. Well, it's a long story about how they get to be one and all that kind of stuff, and to stay in it. They're scared to death.
Yeah.
They don't want to lose it. And then they have their license taken away and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And they put out a great deal to get there. I've interviewed many doctors who, you know, committed to the training, got through the training, and then realized this isn't helping people. This isn't what I want to do.
I know. There's a great book. It's called Disciplined Minds by Jeff Schmidt. That was one of those books I laid my hands on early to help me understand what in the world's going wrong with my colleagues.
Disciplined Minds.
Disciplined Minds by Jeff Schmidt. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. Yeah. He was a physicist, and he was like the editor of Physics Review or something. I forget it was. He was fired after his book was published.
Of course.
You know? But if you want to understand, it's not just scientists, it's all professions. It can be journalists, it can be physicians, anybody that has a potential of influencing people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's for professionals. It's what professionals go through, how they're brainwashed, you know. And they usually, when they leave a profession, it's by their own choice because they don't like the direction it's going.
Right.
And some really productive people like my friend and colleague Peter Duesberg, UC Berkeley, mm-hmm. one of the smartest, most capable, ethical, heroic scientists I know, you know. And he just was like me, you know, early on, just as mainstream as you can get, but you just stuck to your job. You just kept working really, really hard, you know. Everybody says, "Whoa, this is great job. You really keep it going," you know. Mm-hmm. And he came up with a gene sequence of the first retrovirus. He was able to sequence the whole thing. He's a world authority in retroviruses. Yeah, HIV is a retrovirus. And but he's an extremely ethical person, you know. And he even started having real doubts about these retroviruses when they thought they caused cancer. And he said, no. You know, and he would have gotten a Nobel Prize if he kept his mouth shut about the HIV business. He was one of the youngest, might even have been the youngest person elected to the National Academy of Sciences in the United States for all the work that he was doing. He had the Outstanding Investigators Grant.
Wow.
You know, 7 years, didn't have to do anything else, you know, and then he published this paper critical of the HIV hypothesis of AIDS in 1987. It was an invited paper, because he was the world authority on retroviruses, and they wanted a review on retroviruses and disease. So
they asked him to write it.
Yes, because he's the world authority on these things.
Yes,
you know, and it's like a legal document, point for point for point for point for point, how retroviruses in general cannot cause diseases, and HIV in particular could not cause any disease.
Right.
And when that paper got published. And after it got published, I mean, I've said that, I think I might even put that response in the Tyranny of Dogma.
Yes.
About how that letter, you know, went all the way up to the White House.
Yeah.
You know, and he was torpedoed. He's never had a grant. When that grant, his 7-year grant, that's ended in the early 90s, he's never had another grant. Mm-hmm. And he never had one prior to that.
How have we rewarded this, you know, quite honestly, almost a genius scientist? How have we rewarded Peter?
How would we, or
how have we? How has he been rewarded for his extraordinary?
He's been silenced. He's been totally silenced.
Bingo.
And he keeps his sense of humor and everything. And he and I worked on cancer, and we've done some of the most important work ever done on cancer because of this AIDS stuff we got together. The fact that he was freed up, he didn't have to write grants anymore, so he could do whatever he wanted to.
Yeah.
I left the industry in 1996, pharmaceutical biotech. I had enough money. He and I joined up. He wanted to start working on the aneuploidy theory of cancer, chromosomal imbalance theory of cancer. It's an old one, goes back to 1914. He went to Germany on sabbatical that year, and I stayed and did some theoretical work on it. And we've written numerous papers on this stuff. We have proven Theodore Bovary's chromosomal imbalance theory. We proved it, Got it published. I wrote a book on it, for cancer researchers, and it goes, it's silence. And
because cancer is big business.
Oh, it's huge business. And the thing that I learned in the industry, incurable disease is what money is made of.
That's right.
All right. And the only thing bigger of incurable disease, like cancer, incurable, actually is curable. But, is keep going and doing all this stuff. And plus they keep causing more and more cancer all the years, all the stuff that we're doing to people. Cancer chemotherapy, I think, is like the second or third leading cause of cancer itself, something like that,
Well, medical error is the third leading cause of death overall.
What is medical? That's error. Right. Yes, that's right. And, but then the bigger market are healthy people. Enter vaccines. Your vaccine, the whole human race is a potential customer, with vaccines. That's why there's been this huge, huge push on vaccines.
Yeah, with absolutely no liability.
None, zero since '86. I know. It makes me fighting mad.
Oh, yeah. And it should make everyone fighting mad. As I think there's people in just, my conversations, I think there's people that are heavily rewarded in this system, obviously, right? Financially, but also ego-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They've always gotten the pats on the back. They've always gotten the trophies and the ribbons and they're so addicted to the system because the system rewards them and fills a need for them. So for people like you and me, we don't give a shit about the trophies and the ribbons.
No.
We want the truth.
Well, they've made this road, they either go this way, the dark side, or they go this way. And Peter had that in the AIDS days, He could have kept his mouth shut, got a Nobel Prize, and never had any grant turned down and everything, So many people, unfortunately, went the other way.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys that I had colleagues in California, that wouldn't want to talk about this stuff. They went that way and I went the other way,
Right.
And, that's always a personal thing. How does that happen?
Yeah.
You don't know until you face it,
Yeah.
Let me give you a definition of courage. I just have to share this with everybody.
Yeah.
I love to have heard about it. It's Australian, a guy who was a retired colonel from the Australian Military Special Forces. He gave the definition of courage. Courage is love in action. Courage is love in action. That explains everything I have ever witnessed in courage. Because it's not like a thing that, you got this gene, this courage gene, and you're always going to be courageous. No. Love has to be involved. That's why mothers are so fierce, the most fearsome warriors, when it comes to their kids. Yeah. They're going to do whatever it takes to protect those kids. That's why the women are really the warriors in this battle, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then
unwavering courage where I'm not even sure where it comes from.
Well, it comes from love.
Like I have no choice.
Love. That is it. That is the source of it. And that guy knew it because he'd seen it with his own eyes in the military. Yeah. If somebody's dying, it's not conscious.
No. It's
not conscious. You just do it. And people think courageous, they think it's conscious. It's not. No, it's not. It's love. It's something that's in you, that comes out because you couldn't resist it.
That's right.
And that's why on other occasions, it doesn't come out because that little trigger that the love wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so we got to nurture that. We got to make people love each other a lot more.
That's right. And, the more that people come out, then the less targets there will be, right? Because they can't make 1 million people targets. Well, they have with this system that they're doing right now. But I mean, if 1 million people stand up, 1 million mothers stand up and say, no, we aren't doing this.
That's right. And I'll be right there with them.
Yep.
I'll help. I'm not the leaders on these things. The women are the warriors, but I'm right there with them.
And I think that's a perfect place to end. I thank you so much, David, for being on today. And you bring me hope knowing that people like you are out there doing what you're doing, because it is a dismal view right now with what's going
Look
on.
at yourself. You should look at yourself, because you're one of those people too. I see them all the time. I told somebody with the AIDS stuff, I told them the only good thing about the AIDS was the wonderful people that you get to meet.
Yeah.
And it's so more even truer now than it was then.
I agree. I feel like we're all connected before we've even met.
Yeah. You're right. It's a good place to end.
Thank you, David. And thank you for being on the Naturally Inspired podcast today.
Thank you too.
If the Naturally Inspired movement makes sense to you, let's do this together and transform the medical model and help people take charge of their health. Learn more about how you can join the Naturally Inspired movement by going to naturallyinspiredadvocate.com or call me at 970-475-4862.